All right, guys, I've gotten a lot of questions, a lot of requests. People wanted to hear my thoughts on the KSI versus Logan Paul boxing match. Is it good for boxing or is it bad for boxing? Did it make a mockery of the sport? Did it help the sport? First, I'll start off by telling you all publicity isn't good publicity, but all publicity isn't bad publicity either. What I mean by that is when you have a sport like boxing, right? I've taken part in boxing events, 7 myself. And you have the opportunity to get more eyes on the sport. I think you should, especially when you're going against a sport that is exciting in the UFC, where a knockout could happen at any point in time, whether it be by flying knee, spinning heel kick, submissions. So many different variations or variables happen in the UFC, where boxing, you're literally just swinging your fist for 12 rounds straight. See a lot of guys with clinch work when they're tired. They clinch. They can't really hit their opponent while they're clinching, so the referee breaks it up, and then that happens for the better part of the fight. So that brings me to my point. I think KSI and Logan Paul, and I'll admit, I was the first person I was against it. I was like, listen, these two YouTubers, man, they're headlining the Staples Center, and they're main eventing a card, let alone it was a 6-round fight at that. Usually boxing fights, main events, 12 rounds if it's for the championship, 10 rounds if it's not. I just had a little issue with it at first. But the more and more I thought about it, I said, wow, how many kids in this generation, watch these guys on YouTube, watch KSI's game streams, listening to Logan Paul's YouTube channel? And I'll admit, I got stuck in my ways. Me being only in my 20s, got stuck in my ways, my young 20s at that. I got stuck in my ways, and I said, wow, I kind of judged a book by its cover. I think these guys really, in some form or fashion, helped the sport. I think they helped the sport grow in a lot of different ways. I think they put new eyes on the sport, because since the Mayweathers of the world retired, you don't have big personalities. And as much as people say, it's about the fight, it's just as much about having a big personality to sell these fights. That's why Israel Adesanya in the UFC. That's why a Conor McGregor. That's why a Nate Diaz and all these, John Jones, Daniel Cormier, all these different guys can sell fights because they realize they're able to sell themselves. They're able to sell the fans on the idea that this guy sucks and they're that much better because of so on and so forth. It brings me back to this old quote I heard: every hero needs a villain. Right? You look at a guy like Khabib Nurmagomedov, right, for the UFC. Khabib is not a guy that's going to talk a lot of trash. He's a guy that goes out there and makes you pay for it in the ring. The problem with that is, as much as of a dominant fighter he is, a lot of UFC fans or MMA fans or combat sport fans didn't know who Khabib Nurmagomedov was, because he's a guy that goes about his business. So for every Khabib Nurmagomedov, you have a Conor McGregor. Khabib Nurmagomedov needed Conor McGregor to build up his brand, so to speak. You fought the biggest MMA fighter as far as ticket sales goes. You fought the biggest MMA fighter, and not only did you fight him, you dominated him on national television. And Conor McGregor sold that fight. Make no mistake about it. Khabib controlled the entire fight. So sometimes, certain athletes, certain combat fighters' careers get lucky, right? And they land on a fighter that's able to heighten their notoriety. Daniel Cormier needed John Jones. John Jones did it for him. Certain guys bring out the best in one another. Floyd Mayweather did it for Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez wasn't a big talker. He fought Floyd Mayweather. He was undefeated when he fought Floyd Mayweather. Had 40-plus fights when he fought Floyd Mayweather. He fought Floyd Mayweather and he lost, right? But he's now the biggest name in boxing, and he still carries, the same demeanor that he's always carried, even when he fought Floyd. The only difference is, he had that guy that likes to talk a lot. He had the guy that was able to get in his face, and even though he lost, it helped his brand in the long run. So I say all that to say, KSI and Logan Paul as of right now, they help the sport of boxing. I don't know how long that will last, because at some point you need longevity. You need these kind of guys to stay in the sport. I mean, real boxers at that. I mean, sure, you got your Deontay Wilders, who are big personality guys, right? You've got your Anthony Joshua's, I guess, to an extent. Yeah, so I mean, you need those guys to kind of catapult your career. And I think that Logan Paul and KSI did a great job for the sport of boxing. I think they brought new eyes on the sport of boxing. But I also think boxers can look at Logan Paul and KSI and say, hey, if two YouTubers could sell out the Staples Center, if two YouTubers could headline the Staples Center and make it a big fight and get people to pay actual money, dollars to watch this fight, why can't we? We're the guys that train this 24/7. If you want my honest opinion, that's why a guy like Ryan Garcia is being catapulted to the top, right? Before he even, anybody really knew who he was. This guy almost had 1 million subscribers on Instagram. So, boxing is starving for that type of phenomenon. And I think if they can continue to grow with different people's personas in boxing, I think UFC does a great job of, spotlighting, giving the attention to the fighters, especially when they have fight week. I think boxing can learn a couple of things from the UFC and learn how to put more attention on the fighters and less attention on the fight, because if you put more attention on the fighters, quite naturally more attention will be on the fight. I feel like boxing sometimes talks a little too much about the fight, where people just want to hear people trash talk. I mean, you look at Mayweather versus Conor McGregor. Nobody really thought Conor McGregor was going to beat Floyd Mayweather, but something about Conor McGregor made you think it was possible, because Conor McGregor is such a big personality. This guy, first thing he said when he got on the mic is, I'm going to knock this guy out in 4 rounds. And here this guy is. He's never even been, to a 6th round, 7th round, 8th round. But he had you believing that he could withstand Floyd Mayweather and be the first man to put that 1 on his undefeated record. Now, we all know how that played out. But I say all that to say, KSI, Logan Paul taught the boxing community that you need big personalities in order to sustain the sport. Boxing has never changed. Boxing has been the same boxing from our parents, day and age. The only difference is the personalities have kind of dipped. We had Sugar Ray Leonard, we had Muhammad Ali, we had so many different guys, Mike Tyson. See what I did there? They had so many different guys to sort of watch. And now we don't really have that. So if there's one takeaway I came away with from watching the whole festivities leading up to the Logan Paul versus KSI is, boxers, I know you're going to work on your craft, but also work on your personality. You can learn a thing or two, and maybe you might sell out the Staples Center.